All right. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to everybody that's out there tuning in. Welcome to On the Yard Network. Of course, I'm Perry White. My man, Zach McKinnell, is going to join me here in a minute as we get ready to recap another week of SEC baseball. Some series took place over the weekend. And man, it was some great baseball, some surprises. We're going to talk about all of that as we continue to get through the show. First of all, I want you guys to be sure to go subscribe to the On the Yard Network YouTube channel. Go hit that subscribe button as well as follow On the Yard Network across all social media networks. We're on X, we are on Instagram, as well as right here on Facebook. Be sure to go follow, like, and hit the share button as well as subscribe to the On the Yard Network, man. It's YouTube channel. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as we continue each and every week to bring you guys updates about what's happening around SEC baseball as we continue to work our way through these conference series as the season progresses. Before you know it, we'll be at the SEC tournament. Then we'll be regional, super regional, and it'll all wrap itself up at the College World Series. So, man, as we continue to rock and roll, I'm just waiting on my man Zach to jump in. And once he jumps in, we're going to be ready to go. So, hope everybody had a great weekend. Did your team win? Did your team get a clean sweep? Did they come out on the losing end? We're going to talk about all of that, and you'll be able to join in with us as well down in the comment section with us here on the show. So, and as always, what I normally do, I'm getting ready to share this across all these social media pages, but hope you guys will enjoy the show. Zach will be joining me here in just a minute. We're going to rock and roll through everything of this past weekend. So y'all give me just 1 second, waiting on Zach to get in here, then we'll be ready to rock and roll. Let's see, here we go. Zach, what's going on?
What's up, man? How we
How everything
feeling?
going with you, man?
Man, good. Trying to stay out of this weather down here.
Let's see. As always, I'm going through. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear, man. You got me?
Wasn't it?
Hang on one second.
Okay. Zach will jump back on with me here in just a minute. Trying to make sure we got everything going good. Give everybody some time to join us this morning. Some great series going on. LSU on the road to Oklahoma. How about Alabama on the road to Auburn? Georgia on the road to Texas, which really caught me by surprise in that series that we're going to talk more about. Missouri was at home. Missouri on the road at Arkansas. And how about Arkansas putting up the big runs that they did in that game? And so, man, we're going to talk about all of these things and continuously watching Florida, trying to figure out what's going on down with the Gators. Just doesn't seem to, something seems to be off with Florida right now. We'll break down more of that game as well once Zach jumps back on. As well as look at some midweek games. We had some midweek action going along as well that we got to take a look at. So you guys just hang in there tight, waiting on Zach to jump back on, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. Let's see.
What's up, man?
Blue,
You
you
got me
there?
now? Yeah, you
There you
got me.
go.
There we go.
Hey, man, look, let's jump right into it. We're talking about some SEC baseball. Man, first of all, how was your weekend? Before I even do anything, man, I got to check on my boy, man. How everything going with you?
Man, good. Spent the weekend over in San Antonio, hit up the Final Four. Got to see two really, really good games, an epic collapse by Duke. So, you know me, man, always trying to be around sports, and it was a fun weekend down to San Antonio, down on the Riverwalk.
I got to ask you, man, how your brackets looking these days?
Oh,
Did
I'm
everything
good.
work out for you? Did you do a bracket?
Yeah, I did. So I always make two. I make one that I use as like, man, this is how I really feel, and then I make a homer bracket, right? So that one had Auburn winning. That one got knocked out this weekend. It still did pretty good. But that one didn't do as well, right? Because I had Auburn over Duke in the Natty, but my main bracket, man, hey, we're leading both the groups I'm in. We're leading the group I make with my friends every year, and then I'm leading the HBCU nightly group right now. So we're killing it. We just need Florida to win, man, and we win both groups.
I had I had Auburn versus Duke for the national championship. I thought Auburn was going to go all the way, but unfortunately, their season came to an end. And then I had Tennessee in my Final Four. I thought Tennessee was good enough after watching them to get past uh,
That,
Houston, but Houston
that's
is a
funny.
tough team.
That's funny. I had three of the four Final Four right, and the one I missed, I had Tennessee over Duke.
It's going to be a
I
big
mean,
game
man,
tonight
we're
with
we're
Houston and Florida.
in
Florida
Florida.
looks really good. I can't lie about it.
Man, Walter Clayton Jr. is just different, man. He's having like a Kimba Walker type tournament.
He is, man, and he's turned it up for the Florida Gators. All right, let's jump into this SEC baseball, Blue, and we look back at the midweek games. That's a couple games that caught my attention. We're not going to do too much on those, but how about UAB? You talked about this game with UAB and Auburn. UAB and Auburn up in Auburn, and UAB. You said that's a game to watch, and it was a game to watch. UAB snuck it out 4-2 over the Auburn Tigers. 6 hits, 1 error, along with for the Tigers on the other end, 8 hits, 0 errors. UAB gets the victory 4-2 in the midweek game.
Yeah, man, it felt like an upset watch just because of how it just seemed like Auburn was trending in the wrong direction going into that midweek game. And also, too, Perry, we know this when you have an emotional weekend series against, your bitter in-state rival, that midweek game gets overlooked maybe even a little bit more. And I think Auburn got caught looking ahead, and you saw what happened. We're going to get into the weekend series. You saw what they were focused on, and so I think UAB snuck one out on them, and Auburn just couldn't get going, right? And couldn't turn all those hits into runs. And that's one thing that's really been hurting them is converting those guys on base into points. And it's been a struggle for Auburn at times. And so I think they overlooked this one.
That was a good call by you with that UAB game. How about another midweek game? Texas State and Texas. The Longhorns fall short in this one. 5-3 for Texas State. 3 hits, 0 errors for the Longhorns. 8 hits, 2 errors. 5-3. Texas State gets the upset over in against Texas.
Yeah, this one was a little bit surprising. I'll be honest, especially hindsight being 2020, looking at how Texas looked this weekend, right? But also too, it shows how costly those two errors were because they like when you look at all the other major statistics, they outplayed Texas State in almost every important category, but those two errors really cost them here. I mean, a massive win for Texas State, though.
It was, man. 4 runs in the 8th inning to seal the deal as Texas was able to put up 1 in the 9th. Just wasn't enough to get it done. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the weekend series now. We're looking at the first game that was played on Thursday. It was number 7 LSU on the road at number 10 Oklahoma. And we talked about this series. This was one to watch because Oklahoma is a team that can give you fits. LSU is a team that has continuously showed week in and week out. They're one of the best teams in the nation. Aside from that earlier series against Texas, which they fell short 2-1 on the road in Austin, they seem to have gotten things together. They're on the road in Norman, Oklahoma against the Sooners. And in game one, LSU gets it done 2-0 in this one. They get 2 runs, 6 hits, 0 errors on the other side for the Sooners, 5 hits, 0 errors. LSU takes game 1. Then we move over into game 2. LSU, the bats really started to wake up in this one. 10-2 was the final in this one. 15 hits for the Tigers of LSU, 2 errors, and on the other end for the Sooners, 5 hits, 1 error. LSU had a big inning in the second where they put up 4 runs, and then in the 9th inning put up another 4 to add with that one as they took game 2 and went up 2-0 in the series. And then we came to game 3. It was a lot closer than what many expected, and the weather was a lot chillier over in Norman, Oklahoma in this one, but LSU found a way to sweep this series 3-2 in game 3. 6 hits, 1 error for the Tigers. On the other end, for the Sooners, 5 hits, 1 error. LSU gets the clean sweep over the Sooners in their first SEC series.
This one was super impressive for LSU. I think Oklahoma, we kind of looked at a team that has been as a formidable challenge for some of these higher up elite teams, right? And for LSU to be this dominant on the road, I mean, man, to me, this was one of the most impressive performances of the weekend, in my opinion. And listen, it starts with their pitching. Their pitching staff was so good this weekend, right? And if you can get that consistency week in and weekend in and weekend out, it's going to be huge for the Tigers because we know their bats can be hot. It was just the depth of their pitching staff has not looked like this all season, in my opinion. And this was an impressive one, man. A huge weekend victory for the Tigers, especially what was it? The second game was the one where they just came alive. Was that the or the Friday game? My bad. Was the one where they went crazy in that one. It was what 10-2. They had 15 hits and the Sooners never looked like they had a chance, man. So this was a massive one for LSU, and I think it establishes what me and you have been talking about for 3 weeks now, right? Is that when LSU is on, they're arguably the best team in the SEC, regardless of what the standings say, right? They have that next gear, and I think that's why you see this team every single year in championship contention.
I saw a lot of people commenting about Oklahoma's facilities. They don't have the biggest stadium, some of the stadiums that you see around the SEC. So I'm curious to see moving forward what Oklahoma's going to put into that baseball program, especially when you're talking about facilities.
They're gonna have to upgrade, right? Because it's the SEC, man. And we talked about this a little bit last week, right? With Georgia and some of these other programs that are kind of having breakout years. You see the investment in these programs where at one time the Auburns, the Georgias, because Auburn just redid their stadium, the Alabamas. These schools are finally putting some money back into baseball, right? Where they may have focused on football, a little bit of, basketball recently has become a big thing, but you start to see the SEC invest in these non-revenue sports. And I think that's the next step for Oklahoma joining this conference is they're going to have to put some money in the SEC or you're going to fall behind very quickly.
Yeah, a lot of comments about stadium size and everything else. Let's move on. Let's talk about the number 9 Ole Miss Rebels on the road up in Lexington, Kentucky, taking on the Wildcats. Inclement weather all across the Mid-South and the South this weekend. And in game one, Ole Miss falls short to Kentucky 5-4. In this one, Ole Miss 13 hits, one error on the other side for the Kentucky Wildcats. 6 hits, one error. Kentucky takes game one after a big second and third inning for them. 1 run in the second inning, another 3 to add in the third inning. Kentucky gets game one. And then we move on to game two. Ole Miss found their way back in this one and won it with 2 runs in the ninth inning as they win 3-1 over Kentucky in this one. The Rebels, 8 hits, 1 error on the other side for the Wildcats. 4 hits, 0 error. Now we got a tied series. What are we going to have in game three? Another close one where Ole Miss edges it out in extra innings. 5-4 is the final score in this one. This one went to 12, and in the 12, Ole Miss put up 2 runs to Ole Miss to Kentucky's 1. Ole Miss in this ball game, 8 hits, 0 error on the other end for the Wildcats of Kentucky. 2 hits, 10 hits, 2 errors, and Ole Miss finds a way and 2 close ones to close this out. 2-1 over Kentucky.
Uh, this is one I've been kind of excited to talk about. I don't Kentucky played well, right? I don't think I came away saying Kentucky's not good. They do fall to 5-7 now, right, in conference, and they've kind of worked their way into that bottom tier of the conference, right? But I look at Ole Miss, Perry. I don't know if you've seen it. They're sixth in the nation now. When I watch this team, I don't see a team that is top 10 in the country, just personally. Now, if they keep winning, maybe they prove me wrong, right? But I look, I mean, Perry, they're ranked ahead of Georgia. And I know Georgia, we're going to get to the Georgia series and they didn't have a great weekend, but I still would say Georgia's a better overall team than Ole Miss is right now. And it's just one of these things, and we've seen it when we talk football, right? During the season, there's just those teams that they're winning, but they're not looking super impressive doing it. And you can spot all these flaws that are eventually going to catch up to them. I don't think they're necessarily great. I don't think they have a great pitching staff. I wouldn't rank them, top five, I wouldn't even say top seven in the SEC right now. And I don't think their bats would rank in the top seven either. Like they're just this team that is kind of middle tier in all these important statistics. but they just keep finding ways to win series. I'm going to be very curious to see how Ole Miss stacks up against the Arkansas, the Texas, the LSU's, the Georgias, the Tennessees, because I still think they're a little bit unproven. I mean, because Perry, they're still sitting what at 8-4 right now in conference, tied with Georgia right now. I just I think we're going to see that record regress towards the mean, if I had to say it. But a massive win. They found a way to pull out in extras. You got to give them some credit there.
And they lost that series against Arkansas, and that was kind of one of those ones where had they beaten Arkansas, it would have turned a lot of heads. But I think Ole Miss, for a lot of the posters out there, and a lot of people watching, still have some faith that this team is still one of those teams that at any given series can beat anybody, and that's how they were able to get past Kentucky after losing game 1 and able to close out that series, winning game 2 and 3. We move on. Vanderbilt, who was just barely cracking the top 25, on the road down in Gainesville, taking on the Florida Gators, who have continued to struggle. And the struggles continued in this series as Vanderbilt got game 1 6-0 over the Gators. The Commodores got it with 9 hits, 0 errors on the other end for the Gators, 7 hits, 0 errors. Vanderbilt takes game 1. Then we move on to game 2. Vanderbilt closes this one out in the ninth inning, adding a run to basically seal the deal. 3-2 at the top of the ninth. Basically, Vanderbilt gets it done. The Commodores 5 hits, 0 errors. The Gators 9 hits, 1 error in this one. And then we move to game 3. Can Florida at least win one of these games out of this series? And they could not. Vanderbilt Commodores really brought it to them, putting up 5 runs in the ninth inning to seal the deal. 11-3 over Florida. For the Commodores, 15 hits in game 3, 1 error. And for the Gators, 10 hits, 1 error. Florida Gators continue to struggle. Vanderbilt gets it done on the road. But once again, you got to scratch your head asking what is going on with Florida and what is really transpiring in front of our very eyes week in and week out in any series that they get in now that they got into SEC play.
They're just not a good team. I just they're just not, and I think it starts for me when I watch them. I I think it's the pitching staff. I just don't. Their pitching has been arguably one of the worst in the conference. I think obviously you have to put Missouri in the last spot there, but outside of Missouri, man, I would their pitching staff has just been bad. I mean, they do rank second to last period ERA as a team, 5.72. They've struggled to keep teams from just finding their rhythm offensively, and then on top of that too, in terms of big plays, they just don't have a lot of guys who can just go make a play offensively. So I just I just think Florida was a gross misevaluation preseason, man, and they just right now they're just not good. And I think if you're a Florida fan, you just have to hope that maybe they can give you a little bit of positive, man, because I think postseason play and just anything positive coming out of this conference play is going to be hard to find.
Yeah, it's tough for the Gators. Uncharted territory watching that baseball program struggle to where they are this year in SEC play. 1-11 in SEC play currently. We move on to Battle of the Alabamas. The Iron Bowl on the dime, so to say, if you want to call it that. But it's number 8 Alabama versus number 16 Auburn. Alabama on the road at Auburn. And Auburn opens it up big in game 1, 10-0. The Tigers get it done off of 15 hits, 0 errors on the other side for the Crimson Tide. 2 hits, 1 error in that one. Auburn gets game 1, and then we move on to game 2. Alabama finds a way to get it done. Two runs in the top of the ninth to pretty much close it out for them. 6-5 was the final in this one. 10 hits, 1 error for the Crimson Tide on the other side for the Tigers of Auburn. 8 hits, 0 errors. Now we got a tie series. We go into game 3, and guess who gets it done? The home team, the Auburn Tigers, find a way to get it done. 7-5 after a big first and second inning. 4 runs in the first inning to add on another 2 in the second inning. And then you guess what? The Crimson Tide tried to battle back in the third to add another 3 runs of their own and another 2 in the seventh. But wasn't enough. 7-5 to find the score. The Tigers in this one, 12 hits, 0 errors on the other end for Alabama. 6 hits, 1 error. They close out the series. Auburn gets the series 2-1 over in-state rival Alabama.
Hey man, I called this one. I told you it was going to be 2-1. It's hard to win on the road in the SEC, and I will say this: I was a little bit surprised to see Auburn run rule Alabama, though.
Yeah.
Like it very, very rare you see that in conference play, and man, Auburn just got super hot. And I will say this: I think the thing with Auburn is if their bats, if their bats are are fine. Are their bats are hot. They're a really good team. The problem is consistency, man. We've talked about this, right?
Hmm.
Man, one weekend Auburn could look like a top 10 team in the country. The next weekend, you're like, man, who ranked this team top 10? What are we doing? But I think this was a needed win for Auburn, right? Because you're looking at where they sit in the SEC, right? They're the only 6-6 team in the conference. They're one game back from Alabama and Vanderbilt at 7-5. They're the team that's in kind of like purgatory, right? They're going to have to find a way to sneak out some of these series later in the season to really establish themselves into that top half of the SEC. And this was a huge step forward. And when you get home series in the SEC, you've got to find a way to get those. And this was a massive win for them. And for Bama, I think it shows that, we kind of talked about them last week, potentially sneaking their way into the top
Hmm.
tier. I think it kind of shows they're in that, tier two range, right? I don't think they're there yet with the elite teams in the SEC, but you can kind of put them in there with the Ole Miss, Vandy's in that realm, right? Just outside the top five. And so I think Bama, it was good they didn't get swept, man. That would have been a bad look. But I think this was more about Auburn keeping their hopes alive about working their way into the top half of the conference.
The series of two in-state rivals over in Alabama, Auburn getting it done 2-1 in that series. Then we move on to another game over in Starkville, Palmetary in South Carolina on the road taking on Mississippi State. Neither team ranked in the top 25. Mississippi State falls short in game one at home to Palmetary in South Carolina, 7-3 final score in game one. 10 hits, 0 error for the Gamecocks. For the Bulldogs, 5 hits, 2 errors. Game one is 1-0 South Carolina. Then we move over to game two. Mississippi State gets it done. They hold it down 11-4 for the Bulldogs. 12 hits, 2 errors for the Gamecocks. 5 hits, 0 errors. Now we got a tie series. Here we go. We're making these series interesting. We get to game three. Mississippi State holds it down at home. 6-0 final score. And this went off 11 hits, 0 error for the Bulldogs and the Gamecocks. 2 hits, 0 errors. Mississippi State closes out the series and wins 2-1 against South Carolina.
I just Perry, what did I tell you last week, man? It's just going to be a long season for the Gamecocks.
Yeah.
They just don't have it right now. I think with Maneri, it's going to take some time to get this program to where it needs to be. Uh, I mean, they're just not good. The only thing saving them from being last place is Missouri,
Yeah.
and shockingly Florida, right? That they have that right now. They rank 15th in terms of batting average in the league. They're bottom three in for their pitching staff. I just there's just not much to really take away here other than this team who just isn't ready to compete in a conference this deep.
Yeah. South Carolina falls short in this one. Mississippi State holds it down. Let's move. Here's a shocker right here. You should have known this one was coming. This is the shocker. I'm giving it to you early, everybody. Texas A&M on the road, having to go to Knoxville, Tennessee, to take on the number one team in the nation, the Tennessee Volunteers. We had talked about Texas A&M, who was the preseason number one, who had struggled once they got into SEC play. They were below 500 coming into this game overall on the season, and we really started to scratch our head with what's going on with Texas A&M. We had saw them last week in the series with issues, and then coming into this one, a lot of people would just say, man, the way Tennessee has looked so far this season, this is Tennessee's series to win. And Tennessee got it done in game one. That's exactly what they did. They won 10-0 over Texas A&M off of 12 hits and 1 error on the other end for the Aggies. No hits, 1 error. And it was like, all right, this is probably how this series is going to go. But as my man Lee Corso say, not so fast, my friend. Texas A&M came back in game two, getting a victory over the number one team, the Tennessee Volunteers in the nation. 9-3 was the final in the second game. 11 hits off of 2 errors for the Aggies on the other end for the Volunteers. 9 hits off of 2 errors. And now you turn some heads, okay? Texas A&M, we know can compete with anybody in the nation. They showed it in game two. Can they back it up and show it in game three? And they really showed it in game three. 17-6 the final score. And Texas A&M gets the series, the first team to get the series over Tennessee in SEC play this year. The Aggies, 16 hits, 0 errors on the other end for the Volunteers, 10 hits, 0 errors. The Aggies pretty much lit it up from the third through the fifth inning, adding a run in the third, another 6 in the fourth, and 4 more to go in the fifth. And how about Texas A&M getting the series victory 2-1 over the number one Tennessee Volunteers, Zach?
Man, this might be the most surprising upset that we've had since we started this show,
Yeah.
Perry. I mean, and it's so tough, right? Because I look at Tennessee and it's like, okay, this should be the best team in the league with the talent, well, like on paper. And man, they just did not play like it this past weekend. And it was odd because A&M has really, really struggled to put runs on the board, right? They've really struggled to hit the ball, really struggled just offensively all year long. And man, they were able to find some success this weekend against the Tennessee pitching staff that is really, really good. And you kind of wonder looking ahead, man, was this an outlier for A&M, or are they finally starting to kind of find that level that we all thought they had going into the season, right? Because they could get hot here and go on a little run, but then on the flip side too, you just wonder, was this a wake-up call for Tennessee? When we had that same question when they lost to ETSU in the midweek game, for me, I'm a little worried, man. I think when you got to update those power rankings right now in the SEC because Tennessee has shown some cracks in the armor, and they're becoming a little bit bigger as we've kind of, I guess, went along this season.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this one, but had this lived up to the hype of preseason number one versus current number one, you would expect this out of two teams who have considerably 1 and 2, what people thought the best two programs coming into SEC play. Tennessee kind of showed that early on in their early series, but A&M didn't quite show that overall, not only in the SEC, but just overall. But when it seemed like it mattered against the number one team in the nation, the Aggies said, hold on, let me remind y'all that we were once number one in the season, preseason. So don't take us lightly, anybody. And I think for anybody moving forward, don't take A&M lightly. Just because they had a rough start, they still are a team that's capable of beating anybody any given day.
Yeah, that's how I feel, man. And if they get hot, they can make this SEC race extremely interesting.
You don't want to see them heat up, as they say, at the right time when things start to matter, getting into tournament play and headed on from there. Let's go on to the game of the week that we had last week. Number 3, Georgia on the road to number 5, Texas. This was one of those matchups that we discussed early on. This first true test for Georgia, now that they are this upper echelon in the big numbers. When I say the big number, we're talking top 5 in the nation. And ranked above a Texas team who pretty much got a series victory over LSU, which we know is not easy to do. And in game one, Texas gets it, and we all know in Austin, you better bring it. 5-1 the final score against Georgia in game one as the Longhorns win this one off of 5 hits, 0 errors. On the other side for the Bulldogs, 3 hits, 0 errors. 1-0, Texas goes up in this series. Then we go to game two. Texas continues to winning 7-4 over the Bulldogs off of 6 hits, 1 error for the Longhorns. On the other end for Georgia, the number 3 team in the nation coming into this series, 8 hits and 1 error. Now here we go. We're starting to say, Georgia, what can you do? You're a top 5 team. This is a top 5 matchup, Bulldogs versus Texas. And Texas closes it out in game 3 and gets a complete sweep over the Georgia Bulldogs. 4-3 was the final on this one. 8 hits, 0 errors for the Longhorns. On the other side for the Bulldogs, 4 hits, 0 errors. Clean sweep for the Texas Longhorns over the number 3 team in the nation. And they show once again why they're one of the toughest teams, not only in the league, but in the country.
And this was extremely impressive. And I'm going to say this, man, with the win over LSU, with the sweep over Georgia, Austin's becoming a really, really scary place to go and play.
You don't want to have to go to Austin. Now, Texas State found, well, regardless of the fact, you don't want to have to go to Austin. Just clearly what you're saying. That is a tough place
It
with the fan base behind it and a team that comes ready to play each and every weekend. Man, that is a tough place.
absolutely, man. I mean, and right now they lead the SEC in terms of ERA. They on top of that too, Perry, have this is something that has kind of caught my eye when like looking through everything. They have the second most saves in the SEC right now, and on top of that too have allowed the fewest home runs. They're the only team that has allowed under 20 home runs, only allowing 17.
And
So
considering the 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 competition they have played against, especially in SEC play, talking about LSU and Georgia already, both those were top 5 teams when they played them. That's some damn good baseball.
Absolutely. Now, the one concern is, and we've seen this, right? When their pitching staff doesn't deliver, they get in trouble because they aren't the most explosive offensive team in the SEC, only ranking 10th in batting average. And they haven't really generated a whole ton of explosion. The question is, how far can this pitching staff take them, man? But when they play at home and they're locked in SEC play, they are one of the toughest teams to beat, and that's why they're tied with Arkansas right now for number one in the SEC at 11-1. And this team is a bona fide title contender, man, and they have checked all the boxes thus
Yeah,
far.
they checked all the boxes. They are legit. Put some respect on the Longhorns since they have joined the SEC and first year in SEC conference play in baseball. Then we move on to the last series of the weekend. The Missouri Tigers taking on Arkansas. Arkansas, a tough one in this one. The number 2 team in the nation. They win game 1. You would have thought this was the football game, Blue. 21-3 was the final in game 1. Arkansas just lit it up the third through the 6th inning. 2 runs in the third and another 5 in the 4th and the 5th inning. And then to add on to that, insult to 7 runs in the 6th inning, 14 hits in this ball game, 0 errors for the Razorbacks on the other side for the Tigers. 3 hits, 2 errors as the Tigers fall short in game 1. Then we move on to game 2. Arkansas gets it done again, 14-4, big game for them, as pretty much runs from the first through the 4th inning, lighten up the scoreboard. 16 hits, 2 errors for the Razorbacks on the other end for the Tigers. 6-6, 0 errors, and they close out the weekend series big, 16-2, as they get the complete sweep 3-0 over the Missouri Tigers. 16 hits in this one for Arkansas, 0 errors, and on the other side for the Tigers, 4 hits, 1 error. Missouri just could not get anything going against the Arkansas Razorbacks.
I just want to throw this out here. In terms of batting average, Arkansas has 5 of the top 10 individual hitters in the SEC.
Wow.
They're just good, man. And then on top of that, too, Parker Coyle leads the SEC in earned run average with a .6. Just want to throw this
Man,
out here. I mean, they're just so good, man. And I'm impressed with this Arkansas team. Perry, I know that every time I give them props, you try to pump the brakes, but yes, and I know what fans of other SEC programs are going to say. They played Missouri, Zach, and you're right, they did. But they did to Missouri what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to beat them like I mean, like they were playing a D2 program. I mean, they dominated the series, and that's what you're supposed to do, man. Arkansas continues to check the boxes, man. And funny enough, they're only lost in conferences to Ole Miss, which we were kind of questioning earlier. But man, I don't have much to say about this series. Missouri is just not a good team. Arkansas might be the best team in the SEC right now.
this goes back to what I say every week about Coach Van Horn. We see the Razorbacks year in and year out as a top contender, a national championship contender. They have yet to bring home one of those conference tournament titles, and they've yet to bring home a College World Series. This team seems to be poised to head in that direction. Once again, Razorback fans, I know what it's like. Hold your breath. Just take it game by game. It looks good now, but see it through. The Razorbacks going to have to finish. Right now, they're showing they're one of the top teams in the nation, if not the top team in the nation. They're going to have to close this thing out strong, Blue.
The question is, you know, just looking ahead, I just wonder. I understand why you're nervous, but I just think they're going to be a favorite in pretty much every series moving forward. I mean, I'm looking here. I mean, because they get Tennessee at home, the at LSU series is going to be huge, but they get Texas at home. You get Florida on the road, who hasn't played well. You get Texas A&M at home, who has been up and down. The road trip to Georgia is going to be tough, right? I mean, that's going to be extremely tough. But so really and truly, you have 2 tough road series. You have Georgia and you have LSU, and I think those 2 are really going to determine the kind of the potential of this team. But I look at the rest of them, and you should be able to win those other series at home, even against good teams.
That's right. Let's look at the SEC standings before we get to the top 25. Let's look at the SEC standings. At the bottom of the barrel is Missouri, who took on Arkansas this weekend. They're 0-12 in conference play. Let's go look at Florida. Never thought I'd see the Gators right there near the bottom. 1-11 in conference play thus far. Then South Carolina and Palm right there above them, 2-10 in conference play, Blue. And we got two teams who tied up. Texas A&M, who got the weekend series over the number one team at the time, Tennessee. They're 3-9 tied right there with Mississippi State, who won their weekend series against South Carolina. Both teams 3-9 in conference play. Two more pair of teams who are tied with the same record, 5-7. Oklahoma and Kentucky. Oklahoma seems to kind of be going in the wrong direction, although they're still good overall. But then you look at Kentucky, who, once again, here go these middle of the pack teams, and right above them, Auburn at 6-6 in conference play. Vanderbilt and Alabama both tied at 7-5 in conference play. Then here's another pair. Georgia and Ole Miss both tied at 8-4 in conference play. And now we start to knock at the door of the teams you don't want to see. Tennessee losing that weekend series against Texas A&M falls to 9-3 in conference play. LSU is working their way back up. They're 10-2 in conference play. And then, of course, Arkansas and Texas, both fan bases don't like each other. This goes back to the old days of both these teams in the Southwest Conference. But now these teams in the SEC, both 11-1, and respectfully could knock on the door at number one and nationally at any given time. But looking at this, man, we're talking, let's say the bottom of the barrel right now is Mississippi State to Missouri. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Florida, and Missouri. Then you start to get the middle of the pack. Let's say Oklahoma, Kentucky, Auburn, Vanderbilt, throw in Ole Miss and Alabama. Then you get the top tier, Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Texas, Arkansas. What you think about that?
Yeah.
And give me your opinion as well. What's your thoughts?
So I would separate it like this. I would say the bottom. I think the lowest tier would be the bottom three in South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, and then you kind of have that like could catch you on any given weekend tier where I would put Kentucky, Oklahoma, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and then I would put the mediocre to middle tier would be Auburn, Vandy, Alabama, Ole Miss, and then I would put the top tier. Well, and I'll say this: I think there might be a little separation at the top tier. I think you would have the 1B top tier, which would be Georgia, Tennessee right now, just
Mm,
with how they're playing, and then you'll have the elite tier with LSU, Texas, Arkansas. Because
I
I
could,
because I could see Tennessee having the on paper talent to be in that elite tier, right? Same with Georgia, right, with how they're hitting. But those teams have to prove it on the diamond before anything. You got to earn
and
your way into the elite tier. Brands can't get you there.
yeah. Two toughest places seem like to play right now in the conference is Arkansas and LSU. Both teams respectfully 22-1 at home. The team with the best record on the road, the Texas Longhorns, they're 6-0 on the road. And then you look at Tennessee, although they failed to Texas A&M, they're down 20-3 at home. And then looking at Georgia, along with LSU and Arkansas, they're 21-1 at home. It's a tough place to have to go if you have to go to Georgia, Texas, or Arkansas. But on the road, you're looking at teams. Tennessee is 5-1 on the road. Texas is 6-0 on the road. Arkansas is 5-1 on the road, man. This thing is going to shape up as we get through SEC play and continue to head into the next series. This thing is going to have some good games lined up for us.
Yeah, an interesting team on the road too. Alabama 6-2 on the road. Both their losses coming this weekend against Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Enter the weekend 6-0 on the road, so they're not bad. Vandy 6-3 on the road. So another team that hasn't been scared to go win some games on the road, which is incredibly tough to do that in the SEC.
It is week in and week out, man. Let's move forward and look at some of these midweek games coming up on Tuesday. Presbyterian will be on the road taking on Georgia. How about this midweek game? And I think this should be having some eyes on it after this big weekend by Auburn getting the series over Alabama. Auburn and Georgia Tech over in Atlanta. Georgia Tech comes in as a top 25 program. They're 26-6 on the season, 11-4. Auburn is 22-10, 6-6 in conference play. What you think about this matchup right here?
Yeah, this one's tough, man. I'm gonna go Georgia Tech here. I just think Auburn has shown the inclination to sleepwalk through these midweek games.
This should be a good one. Alabama State from the SWAC coming in, taking on Tennessee. Alabama State, any chance in this one?
No, I just what a time to have to play Tennessee, man, because they're going to be pissed off. Alabama State's going to get all the energy that Tennessee should have gave A&M this weekend.
Let's look at South Carolina, upstate taking on South Carolina and Paul Maneri. Some of these we kind of gonna roll with. How about Mississippi State and UAB? You talked about UAB last week getting a victory over Auburn. Now Mississippi State going on the road taking on UAB. Hey, just one of those trap games.
Yeah, I like UAB for the upset here.
I think I'm with you after seeing what they did with Auburn last week. Then we move on, Dayton taking on Vanderbilt. Anything in this one? You see the Flyers maybe getting an upset over Vanderbilt?
Nah, give me the Commodores.
Ole Miss having to take on Memphis. What you think in that one?
I like Ole Miss here.
LSU on the road having to go down to Thibodaux, Louisiana to take on Nicholls State. Anything going on the road for LSU?
Nope, Tigers cruise.
How about battle in-state teams, Arkansas State and Arkansas? You don't see this often when you talk about these two programs, but Arkansas State, who's 14 and 17, 5 and 7 in conference play, will be taking on the number one team in the nation, the Arkansas Razorbacks up in Fayetteville. What you got?
Yeah, give me the Razorbacks.
Here's another midweek game that I think everybody has to circle because this is a team we talked about a lot. Southern Miss, who is in the top 25 this week, taking on Alabama and Tuscaloosa. Southern Miss comes in this game 22 and 10 on the season, 8 and 4 in conference play. They are a dangerous team. Alabama better watch out in this one, man. What do you have in this top 25 midweek game between the Southern Miss Eagles taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide?
Give me Southern Miss for the upset, man. I
Whoa!
think they're going to be. I think they're going to be looking to make a statement here. And if I'm not mistaken, they got Ole Miss earlier this year. So give me Southern Miss.
You don't think Alabama comes in this one pissed off after losing the weekend series to
They
Auburn?
might, but I think it's a little bit of a hangover. I think they let Auburn beat them twice.
Yeah. It's going to be a good one. I'll be watching out on that one. That's going to be 7 o'clock on Tuesday on SEC Network. Here's another game, Texas A&M and Sam Houston. Who you have in this one?
I don't think Sam Houston has enough to get it done, man. I mean, it would be a good upset, but I think A&M carries that momentum, man. And looking ahead to the weekend series, there might be a little win streak on the horizon for the Aggies.
They need it. They need it. They need it. Moving on, Florida State, who's a top 10 program, taking on Florida. Once again, these teams just continue to see each other week in and week out. Does Florida finally get it done?
Nope. Give me the Seminoles.
And Florida beat Florida State, about 3 weeks ago? So I'm interested to see this one, but you think Seminoles all over the Gators. Gators
Yep.
continue to struggle. Here we go. Texas taking on Houston Christian. Anything in this one?
No. I just it's Houston Christian now, and then I think Texas rolls. I don't think they're going to sleep through another midweek game.
Big matchup right here. Dallas Baptist, who is a pretty good baseball team, taking on Oklahoma on the road. I think this is another game that ought to be looked at because Dallas Baptist has everything to upset Oklahoma in their arsenal. What you think in this one?
Yep, I'm going with the upset here. Give me Dallas Baptist.
DBU. All right, and then here's a rivalry. Kentucky, who is 18 and 11, 5 and 7 in conference play, taking on number 14 in the nation, Louisville, 24 and 7, 8 and 4. Does Kentucky get the upset in this one against Louisville?
This one's tough. I feel like this could be one that Kentucky can sneak out, but I'm gonna go with Louisville just with them being at home.
I think Louisville the Louisville Slugger is the reason it is that. All right, let's move into this weekend series. Big series to look out for, Blue. How about let's start with I think probably be the top game of the weekend. The number one Arkansas Razorbacks on the road having to go to Athens, Georgia to take on the number 17 Georgia Bulldogs. What you think in this one? Arkansas versus Georgia. This should be a great one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Arkansas 2-1 in this series. I think on the road it's gonna be tough to get the sweep, but I like Arkansas. I think they're a more consistent team in terms of hitting and pitching staff. They're gonna win the series, not the sweep though. 2-1
Hope
Razorbacks.
the Razorbacks get it done. Georgia have to prove themselves once again as they're starting into that gauntlet of the SEC series as they had to go on the road to Texas last week, who was a top 5 program. Now they got the number 1 team in Arkansas coming to town this weekend. It's going to be interesting. Can Georgia establish themselves as one of the upper echelons in the conference this year? Missouri and Florida, the snooze fest. Is this a snooze fest? Is there going to be much excitement in this weekend series?
No.
Who you got in this one?
Mm, Oh God. Give me
It is in Gainesville.
yeah, give me the Gators 2-1.
I'm gonna go
I
other
think
side. I'm gonna go Carrick Jackson and Missouri Tigers, man. If there's a series that they need to pull out and have an opportunity to do thus far in conference play, this might be the one with Florida just basically losing to any and everybody. I'm gonna rock with Missouri on this one. My man Carrick Jackson, Coach Jackson. This is a series that I think is winnable for them, aside from the rest of the gauntlet of series that they've seen. Number two Kentucky going. I mean, number two Texas going on the road to Kentucky up in Lexington. What you see in this one is the Longhorns continue to ride high as the number two team in the nation.
Texas with the road sweep.
I think I'm with you on that one as well. If we move on, South Carolina having to go to College Station, taking on a Texas A&M team, Palm Texas A&M. What do you have here?
And for the sweep, man.
And then with the sweep, you think, woo, that'll be a big one for A&M to get back on track.
Yes. So, 6-9 in conference if they can get that one done. That you probably move into arguably top 10 of the SEC standings, depending on how some of the other teams shake out. Man, you're talking there, man. Then we really are going to have a conversation about what happens if A&M gets hot here.
I hope they turn it around so we can talk about it, because that'll be one of the biggest turnarounds in college baseball that we've seen thus far this season, because the expectation was high. What we started to see was very low, but now they may be trying to figure it out. We'll see, can the Aggies continue that streak of what they have going on right now. Mississippi State going on the road, taking on number 12, Alabama, over in Tuscaloosa. What you have in Mississippi State versus Alabama?
I'm going to go Bama 2-1 over the Bulldogs.
I'm gonna go a clean sweep. I think Alabama gets it done completely in this one. After coming off that series loss against Auburn, Bama needs to get this done at home in Tuscaloosa. They showed they are a tough team. They got game one over Tennessee in that series, and so in this one, Mississippi State, who is not as good, nowhere near as good as Tennessee, I think Bama gets it done all three. They have to shake back after that weekend series against Auburn. And speaking of Auburn, they're going to be hosting the number 3 LSU Tigers this weekend. It's Tigers versus the Tigers as the Auburn number 11 team. What do you see in this one? Should be a good one. Auburn got past Alabama last week. LSU went on the road, got past Oklahoma. Now these two teams meet up in this weekend series.
I'm going to go. Ooh, um,
You think Auburn in a tough place to play?
yeah, I do, especially when they're locked in. But I'm gonna go LSU 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
I still think LSU's the better team overall, but I do think home field advantage gets Auburn one of them.
Yeah, this would be a close one. I'll go 2-1 with you. I almost want to go with LSU with the complete sweep. I low-key want to go there with it, but I'll go with 2-1. I think LSU is still, no doubt about it, one of the best teams in the nation. They show it week in, week out. Doesn't matter if it's a midweek game or a weekend series. They are a tough out for anybody. Here's another game to watch out for. Number 5, Tennessee taking on number 6, Ole Miss up in Oxford, Mississippi. You talked about Ole Miss. You're not sold on them, but Ole Miss finds ways to get wins. They lost that opening series of conference play to Arkansas. Then you look at Tennessee falling short last week, losing a series to unexpected Texas A&M. Now both these teams 5 and 6 respectfully in the national ranking. Does Tennessee flex their muscle this week, or can Ole Miss really surprise and shock everybody and say, look, we deserve to be number 6 regardless of what you think?
I'm going Tennessee 2-1. I think Tennessee's the better team, but I think it's going to be tough to sweep Ole Miss on the road. And even when Ole Miss played Arkansas, man, they're just a scrappy team, and this is tough to sweep this team. So I'm gonna go Tennessee 2-1.
I got you, Tennessee. As much as Ole Miss is getting respect, I think Tennessee needs this. I'm going big Tennessee. I have Tennessee with the complete sweep this weekend. I think it's time to show the nation who we are. I think the Tennessee Volunteers are going to show that this weekend. Go 3-0. And here's another top 25 matchup. Number 17, Vanderbilt on the road, and number 19, Oklahoma. The Sooners losing their series this past weekend against LSU. Vanderbilt picking up a series this weekend. Now both these teams meet. This seems to be pretty even. I like this matchup. Who you got here between Vanderbilt and Oklahoma?
I'm gonna go Vandy 2-1.
I'm going to flip this one. I think Oklahoma holds it down this weekend. LSU was too much for them. I'm going to go against it with you on Blue. I'm going to go Oklahoma 2-1 against Vanderbilt in this one. I think Oklahoma still good enough to get it done at home in this series against a team who is not LSU, who is not Tennessee, not Arkansas, but a team that I think is very beatable, man. I like that series right there. Those are the weekend series coming up, as well as the midweek games. Blue, as always, man, Give us the top 25 updated rankings. What we seeing this week?
Yeah, man. Uh, 25 Virginia Tech, 24 Arizona, 23 Southern Miss sticking around, 22 Kansas making an appearance, 21 Coastal Carolina sticking in there. Troy stays at 20, Oklahoma at 19, Georgia Tech at 18 has a chance to move up with some big, a big SEC win over Auburn in the midweek. Vandy at 17, North Carolina 16, Oregon 15, Louisville 14, UC Irvine 13, and here come the SEC teams. Bama and Auburn at 12 and 11. UCLA slides into the top 10, Florida State at 9, Oregon State at 8, and the run continues. Georgia 7, Ole Miss 6, Tennessee 5, Clemson sneaking in there at 4. Then you got LSU, Texas, Arkansas at 3, 2, 1.
If it was up to you, who should be in the top 10?
Ole Miss.
I asked that specifically knowing that's where you was going to go with it. I feel the same way, man. It's just, do you feel it's just too much respect being put on them, or what?
Okay, here's the issue, right? Who do you replace them with, though, is my issue. And like, I don't think they're a top 10 team, but Perry, number 11 is Auburn. I don't think Auburn's a top 10 team. Number 12 is Alabama. I don't think they're a top 10 team. So the next non-SEC team is UC Irvine, Louisville, and Oregon.
Yeah.
I just, but okay, if Ole Miss was 10, would I have this big of an issue with it? No. I just don't think they're a top 6 team.
Yeah. I don't think they're a top 6 team either. And that was the same way. I guess let's put them in the same group. I was feeling the same way with Georgia. You remember I told you I was not sold on Georgia, and it woke me up because especially in this series against Texas, I mean, to let Texas whoop the Bulldogs the way that they did, but Georgia was ranked so high. Now here's Ole Miss being thrusted in that same position. Both Georgia and Ole Miss, to me, kind of fall into that same tier where I'm not really ready to put them up that high in the poll over so many other teams.
Yeah, because what, Georgia's at 7? Uh,
Yeah, they fall in the 7
yeah, I
after being
mean,
number 3.
yeah, that's interesting. I will say this, I do want to ask you because then I know we got to get out of here. There was a lot of talk about the top 25 and how they treated Tennessee versus how they treated LSU. If you remember when LSU lost that series to Texas, they dropped them to like 8, and they only dropped Tennessee to 5.
So what you want to know is it
Yeah,
some favoritism?
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I would say I just think looking at Tennessee's body of work, considering when they did lose and to drop that, I think Tennessee just looked impressive to me, probably a little bit more than LSU. A lot of people came into the season already having high expectations for Tennessee. And then just looking at the body of work of last year coming back into this year, I just think the respect factor was just a lot more for the Volunteers. I think people still felt LSU had something to prove, and LSU was playing like a team that has something to prove. I don't think as much as people were high on them, I think a lot more people were higher on Tennessee coming into the season, and a lot more respect was being put on Tennessee. It was like, all right, LSU, we know you good, but you're going to have to show us because what you did last year was not what we expected of you. Are you going to do that again before I start to thrust you up high? You're going to have to really show me. And I think that non-conference showed me. Kansas State, Dallas Baptist, getting those victories. Although they fell short to Texas, nonetheless, to me, I would have an argument with somebody right now. I think LSU is playing better baseball than Tennessee currently.
That's fair. I'll give you that.
LSU is a team right now that the way that they look once they came out of that Texas series and finding the pitching the way that they had, I just don't think they're a team that nobody wants to see. But hey, we said the same thing with Tennessee. For a second, it seemed like Tennessee was unbeatable. Then reality started to set in. And then what started to happen too is we get deeper into the season. Arms are wearing out. Rosters are having to go. You're having to go check through that roster. We're starting to find out who has the depth and who does not have the depth. You may have started out high in non-conference, but now that you get into conference play and realizing how tough it is each and every week, I think the depth for me is really starting to show and take its place here in the conference. And I think LSU with their depth is the reason why you're seeing the success now even more that they're having now that they got into conference play.
Agreed. I'm with you there. And the thing that's so tough about doing just a show on the SEC too is, man, you could lose a series, Perry, and then still might be like it could be to a team that you're going to have to run into in the College World Series. And it's like, okay, so do you really punish a team for losing to the third best team in the country? Like, how much should you punish Tennessee or LSU for losing to Texas, who's like the number 2 team in the country?
Yeah.
Because how many other teams in the top 25 are going on the road to Texas and winning that series? I would say almost none.
Oh boy, that's almost one like, damn, we got to deal with that this weekend. Man, that's tough. And you know what, Blue? Even more, I'm going to be curious how many, once this dust settles and we get there, how many SEC teams are going to host regional games? Are we
Um,
are we going to pretty much have regional games across the SEC at home?
because how does it usually break out? Is it like I'm trying to just think in terms of like what is it like the top was it top 16 teams usually host?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, so if you're just basing it off of the top 25 right now, it would be Arkansas, Texas, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and Vandy as a possible. That'd be 9.
And if Texas A&M heats up and goes on the run, you better believe you're going to see them in that ranking.
Gosh. Oh, and then I mean, because Vandy's at 17, you still Kentucky is still potentially a borderline top 25 team. You said A&M if they get hot, because all it's going to take is A&M to beat one of those like Tennessees or LSU's or something, and they're going to skyrocket
Yep.
into the rankings, especially if they sweep Missouri, right? And they still have a series against Florida, which is a very possible thing, that a series that they could sweep, man. So it's going to be extremely interesting, man. I can't wait for next week.
I can't wait for it either, man. I want to thank everybody out there that's tuning in, man. Of course, I'm Perry White, my man Zach McKinnell. We do this every Monday, 10 a.m., recapping SEC weekend series, looking ahead to the midweek games and the next series coming up. So if you guys didn't get a chance to catch the whole show, you can go back and watch it here on the Facebook Live, or you can go back and watch it on the YouTube channel on the On the Yard Network. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on the Yard Network and be able to follow On the Yard Network across all social media sites. X, Instagram is right here on Facebook. Zach, let everybody know where they can find you, man, and keep up with you as well.
Yeah, man. Find me on social media at that McKinnell at the underscore Blue Bloods. The Blue Bloods on all podcasts and YouTube, all podcast streaming platforms and YouTube, and then FCS Football Central on SI. Then of course Mondays at 10 a.m. right here, man.
Man, Blue, as always, man, I enjoy doing this with you each and every week, man, being able to talk some baseball. I hope everybody out there enjoyed. And for everybody who continues to watch us, thank you for your support. If you're a first-time watcher, hey, welcome in. Don't be a stranger. Keep coming back. We'd love to have you. And for those of you out there, be sure to share this. Let's talk some SEC baseball each and every Monday at 10 a.m. with myself, Perry White, my man, Zach McKinnell. You can also find me at the Jaguar Journal on 107.3 FM in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. You can follow the Jaguar Journal if you want to keep up with what I do there as well across social media, on all social media platforms, as well as YouTube. Hey, Zach, man, glad you had a good weekend over at the Final Four, man. Got back safe, man, and we'll be talking to each other this week as we continue to see these games and see if we get any of these upset midweek.
Yep, that sounds good, man. Talk to you next Monday.
All righty, to everybody out there, we'll catch you guys next Monday. Have a great